You better leave me alone, Lou. 'Cause I'm not scared of you. You think you're so bad, huh? Well, hit me. Hit me. Hit me!
Y'all, this is Todd Foolery, and today I'm taking you all the way back to the year 1994. Back to a kids show that made Nickelodeon history as the first featuring a predominantly black cast with a predominantly black crew brought to us by two black creators, and one in which I had the opportunity to chat with. So in this video, we're diving into the show's history, how it came to be, and why I feel it made an incredibly positive impact on not only black youth, but the future of black representation in kids television. I'll also be discussing why it only ran a single season despite its popularity, whether or not the show still works now, where the cast is today, and what one of the creators had to say about a reboot. Now, this show holds a very special place in my heart, and I'm particularly excited to talk about this one. So prepare yourself for an overload of 90s nostalgia, and let's start talking about 1994's My Brother and Me. Before we get started, thank you so much for watching. I release new videos when I do, so if you enjoy revisiting television of decades past, don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and notification bell this video to see more like it. Quick shout out to Just Jay for suggesting this show, and if you, the viewer, have any obscure or underrated 90s television you'd like me to cover, comment it down below. If it meets my criteria and I can actually find episodes, I'll watch, research, review, and retrospect it. Now, let's set this nostalgic vibe.
We're here to tell the world the name of this year's favorite rap hip-hop artist.
The nominees consist of two groups, one solo brother with a lot of attitude. Here's who they are.
1994 was a pretty strong year for Nickelodeon, it being its 15th anniversary and all, and while popular shows like Clarissa Explains It All and Doug were concluding, shows like All That, The Secret World of Alex Mack, Allegra's Window, Gullah Gullah Island, and Real Monsters were just getting started. This being alongside active shows like Legend of the Hidden Temple, The Adventures of Pete and Pete, and Rocko's Modern Life, all which were returning for second seasons, and then Ren and Stimpy, which was returning with its fourth. But I'm going beyond Nickelodeon for the nostalgic vibe of this video, because this was also a huge year for black creators. Now, if we're just talking music, 1994 was the year Biggie released his first studio album, Ready to Die, Aaliyah hit the music scene with Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, Nas came to play with Illmatic, Brandy dropped her self-titled album, Brandy, and Outkast introduced themselves to the world with Southern Playalistic Cadillac music. I got that right. Then if we're talking black television, Sister Sister premiered in April, adding to the current lineup of 90s classics like Family Matters, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Martin, Living Single, and Hanging with Mr. Cooper. And while I grew up watching all of these, they weren't necessarily targeted toward the youth. And yeah, most of these shows were family friendly, I know, but if you think about it, they weren't told through a child's perspective. At least not the way My Brother and Me was, and that's why I think it was so special and resonated so deeply with me and other 8-year-olds like me. It was the first time a black show really focused on the children, with the adults taking a backseat. In fact, I can only think of maybe one storyline that revolves around the parents and the rest centering on the kids. But with the nostalgic vibe locked in, you came for My Brother and Me, so this is the part of the video where I talk about My Brother and Me. Let's cue the transition.
I ain't scared. Girl gives me a phone number, I'm gonna call her. And that's all it is. Just a phone call.
Hello?
Hello?
Goodbye.
Being targeted towards 8 to 12-year-olds, My Brother and Me was a sitcom about the Parkers, a middle-class, average African-American family living in Charlotte, North Carolina. Making up the Parker family is Roger, the father and sports journalist, Jennifer, the mother and elementary school teacher, Melanie, the know-it-all self-centered teenage sister, Alfie, the idolized cool older brother, and Dee Dee, the little brother who just wanted to do everything his older brother does. The My Brother and Me of the series is obviously Alfie and Dee Dee, and it shows because I genuinely think they have the best chemistry. But the show also revolves around Alfie's best friend Milton, or Goo, Melanie's best friend Dion, Dee Dee's two best friends Donnell and Harry, and then the comic book store owner, Mrs. Pinckney, and we'll be referring to them periodically throughout the video as well. The show premiered during SNCC on October 15th, 1994 at 8:30 p.m. and like I mentioned, only ran a single season with a total of 13 episodes, concluding January 15th, 1995. Now, while most of the exterior establishing shots were taken in North Carolina, the show was actually shot entirely on location at Nickelodeon Studios in Universal Studios, Orlando, Florida, and despite popular belief, was not shot in front of a live studio audience. And I learned that from my chat with one of the creators. Side note, if you didn't know, I actually grew up in Orlando, literally 45 minutes from Universal Studios, was born in North Carolina, and had an older brother 5 years older than me, just like Dee Dee. So when I say this holds a very special place in my heart, I'm not kidding, because it legitimately felt like it was made for me. Now, the show was created by Ilunga Adele, writer for shows like Sanford & Sons, 227 and City Guys, and Calvin Brown Jr., who's produced on shows like Married with Children, Moesha, The Parkers, and The Proud Family, both the original from 2001 and the upcoming Louder and Prouder version. It was through my conversation with Brown that I discovered the show took inspiration from two major sources, the first being from Brown's own personal life growing up in the suburbs of North Carolina, and the second from the old 50s show Leave It to Beaver. He loved how that show was told through a child's point of view and wanted to do the same, but through a black perspective, as it had never been done before. And what I love most about this is the fact that the show is, without a doubt, unapologetically pro-black without once mentioning race. And that's because the show is just dripping with black culture.
Ordinarily, Alfie and I would be messing something so juvenile, but we're getting sick and tired of babysitting Tevin Campbell here. Yeah, so you guys are gonna make up right now. Don't hold your breath.
Growing up, Brown's parents went to historically black colleges, both being part of Greek organizations, and that's clearly one of the elements from his personal life that made it into the show, because the first thing I noticed during my rewatch was this huge wall of HBCU diplomas and Greek letter insignias, meaning I was introduced to HBCUs before I even knew what HBCUs were. The culture also shows up in the form of guest stars, with former Charlotte Hornets player Kendall Gill appearing in one episode as himself, and former Orlando Magic player Dennis Scott appearing as the elementary school basketball coach in another. Aside from that, there are also references to Motown and Michael Jackson, rap and hip hop music, and use of popular 90s slang. It doesn't stop there though. Black culture also shows up in the form of clothing and fashion. Now, if you ain't wear shorts that came about 2 inches above your ankle, we can't be friends. But whether it's basketball jerseys displaying pride for the Charlotte Hornets, North Carolina Central University sweaters, or Morehouse t-shirts, which, yeah, are both HBCUs, Alfie wearing this Martin Luther King Jr. shirt, Melanie and Dion's natural kinky hair, Goo's hats, these oversized shirts, the part in Alfie's high top fade, to me, all that screams quintessential 90s black culture, or just black culture in general. It's even woven into the comedy, with Goo constantly making fun of Dion's hair and one scene calling it a flea market weave?
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about Dion and her flea market hair weave.
I seriously had to pause and make sure I heard that right. Then Mrs. Pinckney even throws shade at the part in Alfie's hair at one point.
Oh, son, don't be so down on yourself. You're a wonderful young man, but I do something about that part in your hair.
And anyone remember Chris Rock as Cheap Pete from In Living Color? Well, in My Brother and Me, they even referenced that on countless occasions.
They cost $9. $9? Good Lord, that's a lot of money.
In fact, to my surprise, nearly 30 years later, the comedy still works, and I found myself laughing out loud on numerous occasions. And while a large part of that is due to the writing, which we'll discuss here in a second, I attribute most of it to the actors and their chemistry, specifically between Alfie, Goo, and Dee Dee. Alfie and Goo straight up interact like best friends, and the relationship between Alfie and Dee Dee feels so genuine and real, it legitimately reminds me of the relationship I had with my own brother growing up. And while there are still countless moments where Alfie is annoyed with Dee Dee and just wants to talk to girls or hang with kids his own age, the show also takes time to showcase an authentic bond between brothers.
Have you ever kissed a girl?
Sure, plenty of them.
Really?
Well, maybe one or two.
Did you like it?
It was all right.
I thought it was gross.
On top of that, despite making fun of Dee Dee in pretty much every circumstance, it's done through love, and Alfie still always has his back, supports him, and even stands up for him when he gets bullied. There's just something so beautiful about showcasing a genuinely positive and loving relationship between two young black brothers when it's more often played with them at each other's throats. And this is why I think the writing and storytelling really shines. The show just has so much heart.
There, are you happy? One cookie? Is that all our friendship means to you? Yes. Besides, I only have 3 cookies, Goo. If I only had 3 cookies and you wanted some, I'd keep one for myself and give you 2. So pretend they're your cookies.
Now, I've already used this word a lot, but if I could sum up the entire show with one word, that word would be authentic. And I don't know if it's the fact that most of the shows I grew up watching involved kids with secret powers, aliens stranded on Earth, talking puppets or what, but it's just so refreshing to watch a show as simple and relatable as My Brother and Me. Because it's told through a kid's perspective, the stories contain lessons that were easy to follow, and I enjoyed that they didn't always rely on the parents to drive the message home. For example, in one episode, Alfie tries out for the basketball team, and while he's confident, incredibly skilled, and makes 90% of his shots, he's a ball hog, so he doesn't make the cut. And while he's discouraged, it isn't his father or older sister Melanie that get through to him, although I do love this scene.
The coach is bugging, dissing me like some buster. This is whack. My homies are gonna clown me.
Alfie, could you please speak English?
It's not fair. The coach shouldn't have cut me. My friends are going to laugh at me.
Oh!
It's Goo and Dee Dee that not only make him feel better, but help him come to terms with the error of his ways. This is giving the kids the ability to manage their emotions and solve problems on their own, empowering young viewers and demonstrating how they can do the same. Each character is also built with such a distinct personality, so this just adds to the authenticity. The way they banter back and forth, or how they constantly crack jokes, or something as simple as a secret handshake. It's so true to what I remember growing up, and I think the writers did such a great job encapsulating what it meant to be a kid in the 90s. They weren't black stereotypes, but a wide range of individuals. In fact, one of my favorite elements of the show is how the children hung out at a comic book store. I personally grew up reading, writing, and drawing comics back when it wasn't cool, and that wasn't something I saw a lot of other black kids doing in person or in the media. So watching this made me feel normal, accepted, and way less alienated. And then there's the way we can hear the kids' thoughts, revealing what they actually want to say when responding politely to adults.
It's 56 on this math quiz.
Where'd you find that?
I didn't find it. The plumber found it.
Oh man, I knew I should have used the garbage disposal.
Did you study at all?
Duh. Yes, sir. I studied.
During this era, Nickelodeon was heavily focused on giving children a voice. So this idea was a brilliant concept for the creators to integrate into the show. It was also extremely popular and received very well at the time. And I'm not by any means saying this is exclusively a black culture thing, but growing up in a black family, you just didn't talk back. So hearing the children's snarky remarks in their head was almost therapeutic. It's subtle things like these I attribute to the fact that Adele and Brown, the creators, fought to have a predominantly black crew, from writers to designers to production assistants. During my call with Brown, he talked about the importance of having black voices on set during the production of the show, and I feel that that shined through the writing and onto the screen while the show aired for the short amount of time it did.
Alfie, we need your help. Can you teach us to dance?
Can you teach us to dance? You're a jerk, Goo. At least I'm not the poster boy for Bifocals R Us.
Now, if you're like me, you probably thought the show had way more than just one season with 13 episodes, because I definitely remember it airing long after it ended in 1995, but that's actually because Nickelodeon aired reruns well into the early 2000s, then again December 2013 during their Teen Nick, the 90s Are All That programming block. But despite its popularity, positive reception, great storytelling, and did I mention it was also nominated for the NAACP Image Awards in both 95 and 96 for Outstanding Youth and Children's Series? Anyway, so why wasn't it renewed for a second season? Well, it was a very different time back then, and the creators were very vocal about how certain storylines had to be censored on My Brother and Me when they weren't in shows that centered around white characters. Then the cast wasn't featured as much as their white counterparts during promotional events or advertising, and that was probably a race issue as well. There was also just a lot of creative clashing behind the scenes. Apparently, Nickelodeon just didn't see the vision the creators had for the show or future of it, and they couldn't come to an agreement. Some sources even say the debate got so heated it resulted in some of the production crew not wanting to speak to one another anymore, which is unfortunate because the show seriously made such a huge positive impact on black youth, and I can only imagine what it could have done had it gotten 2 or 3 seasons. But on a positive note, it did pave the way for other shows like it, and years later, the president of Nickelodeon admitting canceling the show had been a huge mistake, according to Brown. After all, without My Brother and Me, it would have been impossible for shows like Kenan and Kel, Cousin Skeeter, The Nick Cannon Show, or Romeo to even exist. And these were precursors to a lot of the diversity we see in kids' television today. But let's talk about the cast. Where are they now? Well, while very few continued careers in the entertainment industry, most stepped out of the limelight entirely. Ralph Woolfolk IV, who played Dee Dee, went to Morehouse College, graduated a member of the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, and became a police officer, tapping into those old acting chops for these Justice Network safety videos I came across. Author Reggie III, who played Alfie, went on to do some voice acting work and had a couple minor roles before transitioning to a rap career where he now goes by the name Show Business. Jimmy Lee Newman Jr., who played Goo, also had a couple minor roles after the show concluded, but nothing after 1997, and from what I found, he's just living his life and being a really good father. Aisling Sistrunk, who played Melanie, Stephen J. Wernley, who played Donnell, and Keith Bubba Naylor, who played Harry, never acted again, and I barely found anything about them, minus the fact that Wernley graduated from Harvard and became a coder at Microsoft. Now, Karen Fraction, who played Jennifer, went on to have a couple TV and film roles following the show, but sadly she passed away after losing a battle with breast cancer in 2007. Jim Coleman, who played Roger, has remained very active in the industry with minor roles as recent as 2021. Finally, and perhaps the most well-known of the group, are Amanda Seales, who played Dion, and Kim Whitley, who played Mrs. Pinkney. Seales has been everything from a comedian to activist to author to podcaster and a whole lot more, but I personally know her best from her role as Tiffany on HBO's Insecure. Whitley has probably held the most roles, appearing in shows like The Parkers, voicing characters in The Boondocks, or starring in a reality docuseries that aired on the Oprah Network. Most recently, she's appeared in the show 20s. These ladies are killing the game, and I'm here for it, but that's where the cast ended up. Now, I don't exaggerate when I say My Brother and Me was the first time I legitimately felt seen on television, especially in a way that didn't paint black people as characters of who we actually are. The realness, the relatability, and the authenticity of the show really displayed a side of black culture I had never been exposed to or seen before. The parents were college graduates with conventional jobs. They weren't doctors or lawyers, and they were happily married. And although the Parkers weren't rich, they weren't poor either. They were a middle-class average family with children just living their day-to-day lives in the suburbs. And the kids weren't depicted as troubled youth. They expressed their emotions. They communicated with each other. They learned from their mistakes. And above all, they were just kids being kids, struggling with math exams, playing practical jokes, and learning how to dance so they could look cool at parties. So could something this simple work today? I think so. In fact, Brown loved the idea of a reboot, possibly following Alfie or Dee Dee's kids now instead. Maybe Melanie's or Dion's or even Goo's. I think it's okay to have average shows with average kids doing average things. They don't always have to have superpowers or be trying to become superstars or getting into outrageous antics. Sometimes I think we overcomplicate stories that are just as effective if kept simple, and I think this show got that right. And maybe all it takes is someone like me, passionate about a concept like this, writing my own version and pitching it to someone who will listen, because it's shows like these that shape a generation.
But then what if he doesn't understand? He'll be hurt that my best friend dissed his cousin. And then Tracy won't ever talk to him again. And then Tim won't ever talk to me again. And then I'll be upset and won't ever talk to you again. And you'll fall into a deep depression because you ruined 3 lives.
Okay.
Alright, thank you so much for watching, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed this journey back to 1994 and deep dive into the history of my brother and me as much as I did. If you remember watching the show, what was your favorite episode or favorite scene? Drop it down with any other thoughts you have in the comment section below. I'd love to hear them. Now, the entire series is available to purchase for like $10 on Apple TV or Amazon Prime Video, so you can find it there if you like to watch it all again. Unfortunately, my conversation with Calvin Brown Jr. was over the phone, so I don't actually have a Zoom interview to share like I did with the creator of Cousin Skeeter, but my next retrospective on the famous Jet Jackson does. So that video will be accompanied with an interview with its creator for Caswell Hyman, and it was a really awesome conversation, so I'm super excited to share that one with y'all. That said, this will probably be my last video of 2021, so Merry Holidays and Happy New Year, everyone. Thanks so much for your support over this last year as I figured out where I wanted to take my channel, and I have so many exciting things coming in 2022, including completing my video series for the Secret World of Alex Mack, or more retrospectives for Taina, the Brothers Garcia, So Weird, and just more 90s kid classics. Plus, I may even be dabbling into the 2010s to revisit some more recent shows, so it's gonna be a really fun year. In the meantime, feel free to stick around, click some buttons and check out the rest of my videos here. Go ahead and follow me on social, then don't forget to hit that thumbs up, it really helps me out. Then subscribe with the side of notification bell. Until next time, shine on, ya crazy diamonds.